Hey, this is Vinny O'Brien from RMW Commerce, and I'm delighted to say today that I'm joined by Jason Young from Ballistic. Jason, how are you?
I'm doing well. Vinny, how are you?
Great, man. Thanks so much for joining us. I know we've had a few conversations now, and it seems like this one was never going to happen. But thanks for remaining flexible and keeping the faith.
Well, this time of year, it's pretty hard to schedule things and stay to that schedule. So glad we were able to finally work it out.
Amen. Amen. Look, we've had a few conversations, and before we get into the meaty part of the discussion, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your team, and where Ballistic has come from and where you guys are at today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Jason Young, founder of Ballistic Agency. And I started the agency in 2008 to do nothing but serve the needs of the shooting, hunting, outdoor, and tactical space, the shot industry or the gun industry as we know it. And what we do primarily is build, rebuild, rescue e-commerce platforms, mostly for brands, large merchants, distributors, that type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then help them also with their growth and retention marketing. So things like email and SMS marketing, search engine optimization, affiliate marketing management, that kind of thing. And that is the bulk of what we do on a day-to-day basis. I'm based out of Auburn, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Born in Alabama, raised here, lived for a while in New Orleans and South Carolina, a few other places. And most of our team is here in the U.S., many of them here in Alabama as well. But we do have some developers all around the world that help us with certain aspects of large projects. So we're a small but capable team.
I like it. It's good to be able to say those kind of things about the people you work with. There's a few things in there that I'd like to go through first. And the first time you mentioned the word rescue, I thought it was fascinating. But going back, because you work in an industry that is heavily regulated, right? So we're going to get into that in a little while. But knowing the regulation and the barriers that were there, what was your motivation, Jason, behind setting up Ballistic, knowing what you knew were going to be the challenges ahead?
It was purely selfish. I have always been a gun guy,
Yeah.
always been a shooter and a hunter and an outdoorsman. My dad started me young when I was about 5 years old. And, I got laid off in the '08 downturn. And I decided, now I can't be any poorer than I am now. And so I might as well start a business that I've always wanted to do for a while. And, I was talking it over with my wife and decided that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it in an industry that I know already. I can walk into any conversation or any brand and I can already talk shop about their
Yeah.
brand, their products, that kind of thing. And then also I get to experience some really cool things like matches, trade shows in the gun industry, that kind of thing. So it's selfish behind the scenes. Don't put me up on a pedestal too much.
We'll try not to just yet, but I just think like the position that you're in. I had a boss who went bust in about 2002 over here in Ireland, and he'd no background in developing at all. But he felt he a bit like yourself. He was let go, nowhere to go. He turned to YouTube, self-taught developer, set up an automotive parts business, and then brought 55 people with him. Me was one of them, and that have got one of the largest OMS. Software services in Ireland, which I kind of know some of the mindset. You've got to be, and maybe some of this reflects in you. I don't know. You've got to be pretty dogged. You've got to be single-minded. When people tell you no, you kind of look for the reason to say yes. Does that sound like you?
Yeah, there's some parallels there, but I mean, to expand on it a little bit, I'm a recovering IT guy, so I've worked in IT ever since I got out of college, and it seems like I was always the youngest guy on the team back then,
Mm.
and the web and e-commerce was always it was just coming on. It was just becoming more in reach for the average merchant, and when web projects would come in onto the IT team, things would just roll down to me for whatever reason. They were like, "Oh, Jason's the young guy; he understands building websites and digital commerce and digital marketing and all of this kind of stuff." So that kind of it just made its way to me. So a little bit of parallel there with your friend, just some
Yeah.
IT background and understanding. But then, once I decided to do this, I niched down immediately. I wanted to serve the needs of this industry first and foremost, and the merchants within it.
So,
Go
can
ahead.
I just ask about that point, because it feels like you were saying no to a lot of other business at that stage because you figured this is the route I'm going to go after, and even if there's other opportunity in front of me, and that even in itself behaviorally is a mindset I think that a lot of agencies could benefit from today. But That must have been a pretty scary place for you and your wife going through that conversation.
It was, and I will say, when you choose a niche and you say no to a lot of people that want to give you money when
Mhm.
you need money, that's very hard, and you better be committed. And I was, maybe I'm more stubborn or dumb than anything, but I kept saying no. And I think, when you niche down like that, it does limit your growth in the beginning, but it also strengthens your position and builds a strong foundation for future growth. So I jokingly say we're a 17-year overnight success.
So just taking that in context, right? Maybe you can explain for people who are not familiar with a regulated industry what it means, because even in the normal course of business, there's a cyclical nature to the work that you do, and there's reasons for that. But maybe can you take us through what it means to be regulated and how you describe it to people?
Yeah, sure. Mostly what it means is we, as e-commerce and digital marketing folks in the gun industry, we don't get to play on the same playground as everyone else. A lot of tech platforms are not available to us. They don't want to be associated with weapons or any of the politics behind all of that. And that goes not just for the e-commerce platforms, but also some of the tech stack.
Yeah.
They just don't want to play along with us. And that is a limiting factor for a lot of brands. And so you have to build and design ways to work around that. And it can be very challenging at times. I see some of these brands, they can just start with a huge ad budget on Meta or
Mhm.
Google or something like that, which is off limits for us because it's weapon related. For the most part, it's off limits. And they can just see meteoric growth immediately. It doesn't quite work that way in the gun industry. So established brands definitely have an advantage in this industry, especially
Okay.
back then. Um, we've had to develop ways to serve our merchants outside of the typical way an agency would serve other brands.
So from a customer journey planning perspective, that must look very different. I mean, the way you architect is very different as well. Is that a fair comment?
Oh, that's very fair. Yeah, we have to, I'll say this: owning your platform and owning your tech stack and owning as much of your audience as possible is key in this
Mhm.
industry. Um, you can't put that in the hands of somebody else because you could be turned off overnight. So it definitely changes the strategy.
And again, I'm just going to ask you to explain turning off, because it's a bit different to getting an account frozen or a suspension from a platform. The measures can be far more draconian if you're non-compliant with some of these regulated requirements, I guess.
Yeah, not only can you be deplatformed or just have your account shut down or money frozen, or in addition to just people not wanting to let you use their networks, there are legal ramifications as well. So if our merchants are non-compliant, that could be fees, lawsuits, arrests, that kind of thing. So you definitely want to get this right in this industry being regulated.
Yeah, and I mean, how do you architect around that then? So you've said you build, you design, and you rescue. Like, are each of those scenarios very different in what they present to you, or is there just one path forward?
There's a few paths forward. Um, I think probably. Um, the rescue piece is more of a tech thing. A lot of times people will get into a situation where what they have is just not working, or maybe they have been shut down or deplatformed, or maybe just the previous designers and developers they were working with just didn't take into consideration all of the ramifications, the requirements, the business requirements, that kind of thing, and just failed on a project. So sometimes we'll come in and rescue a project like that.
Okay.
The designing and developing, that's a little bit of a different animal, and it's as gun people, we can start from day one. We know exactly what they need. We know the laws we have to comply with. We have
Okay.
tech partners that are already tuned up to that kind of thing. So those are it's a little bit different, but rescues can be fun, a little bit stressful, but I definitely prefer the design side from the beginning.
And in terms of user experience, then it's got to be different as well, because your customers are so expert in knowing what they want. Is there a big ability for them to switch across competitors? Like, how big is the competitive space now that you operate in?
Um, uh, just a little bit of clarification. Can you
So
say that one
sorry,
more time?
if I'm a brand and I'm thinking about customer experience and I'm working with you on design, if I get it wrong, is there a huge number of competitors that can take that customer away from me, or is it a very closed group of brands that operate in the space?
That's a great question. It somewhat varies depending on who you are and who you're addressing. There are definitely competitors, but this industry, um, we have a lot of loyalists, and so once you've gained a customer, it has proven to me through 17 years that most people will remain loyal. They will jump through a few hoops and hurdles to continue doing business with you. On the tech side of things, we have lots of paths forward, and there's everybody vying for everybody's business. So that's I don't know if that answered your question like you
No,
thought, but
it does, because I'm guessing customer retention is easier in one sense, because if you're a good brand and you can serve your customer really, really well, it's about that repetitive nature of the experience. Can be quite lucrative if you're a brand in that space. So getting it wrong is costly, I guess, is one way I look at it.
yeah,
But getting it right is even more beneficial, right?
you said it exactly right. Yeah, retention is huge, and is very profitable in our industry, especially. But if you mess it up, man, you're going to pay the price for a while, because we're a small community
Mhm.
in the scope of things, but we have long memories as well.
And memory kind of as the key point here. What are the requirements around data gathering? And you as a tech partner, do you have a very strict set of requirements around that? And then from a brand perspective, do they have extra add-ons when it comes to customer data gathering and retention?
Yeah, so there are definitely requirements around that. Obviously, all of our clients are U.S. based,
Hmm.
and we are addressing the U.S. audience. So anything overseas, we want to try to filter that out as much as possible, because that's not our customer group. We don't want to sully the data with that information. But then also, just amongst the 50 states that we have, each state has their own set of requirements, restrictions, laws, advertising guidelines, and laws.
Hmm.
So we have to be very careful when we're gathering customer data. We want to make sure that they're at least 18 or 21 years old, depending on what they're selling, and that can be quite challenging.
So from a design perspective, you've got to do upfront work to gather data, then store it and make sure that it's available. Are there things like random compliance checks? Does any of that factor in?
Those do happen, and we try to avoid them at all costs.
No one likes those kind of conversations.
Yeah, I mean,
But increasingly, marketing and compliance kind of go hand in hand right now, and you've really got to start improving that skill set. I think they have. Moving out of kind of, let's say, the design phase and the tech phase, I want to come back to a little part of it. But your agency goes across growth as well, and you've talked a little bit about the politics of the industry that you operate in. So there's a cyclical nature, we know, because governments change and so on. And like now is probably a rich time based on previous conversations that we've had for you and for the industry. Does that mean you focus more on customer development and customer growth, or do you get in and fix all the kind of plumbing problems that you got to do, or is it a careful balance of both?
it, I was going to say yes, all of the above.
Okay.
Uh, but now it seems like in the political climate we're in today, it seems like growth is definitely what people are wanting,
Mhm.
especially when the economy is still kind of tough. If you're able to acquire and retain right now, you're doing really well.
Okay.
And so it seems like more people are coming to the table and willing to engage this industry as well. And some of
Okay.
that is politically motivated, some of it is economically. If they're sitting there looking at a massive segment of the U.S. economy, like the gun industry,
Mhm.
um, if there's just a few hurdles that they need to get over internally to be able to address that market, they're going to do it. And it seems like they've been doing that over the last year or so.
Yeah, it's interesting, and the different customer groups that fall within it, Jason. You said up top that like it's sporting, it's hunting, like it goes across a lot of different customer groups who are probably very loyal as well to the pastime or their love of their sport or whatever that's going to be. How do you describe those customers? Because there's a lot of them, as you say.
Oh, it's a very wide audience,
Yeah.
and lots of segmentation based on interest groups. I mean, it's everything from competitive shooters at the highest level,
Okay.
all the way to somebody who just they have grandpa's shotgun or something like that,
Yeah.
on down to just camping, hiking, fishing, outdoorsy type things, which there's very little regulation. Nobody really cares too much what kind of tent or sleeping bag gets shipped to a certain place. It's a completely different thing on the gun side of the house, though. The ammunition requirements, gun requirements, that kind of thing. Um, it's you have to really do your homework on audience segmentation when you're doing marketing in this industry.
So can you just kind of bring me through a little bit of that? I'm interested to figure out, how do you do customer discovery, or how do you find out where customers are? I know organic marketing can be restrictive, or like paid doesn't really factor in for you guys. So where does that journey start for you? If I'm a new brand and I'm coming into the market, how do I get noticed?
There's a lot of different ways that you can approach it. There are some ways that we are able to advertise. We are partners with Topple, who they are one of many
Mhm.
display ad platforms where you can get your message in front of people in tangential audiences, maybe uh, related, or let's just take for example like Fox News or a conservative website or something like that. You have a much more likelihood of finding your audience at a place like that and getting that broad brand awareness, and then drawing them to your site and trying to market to them there, get them in your marketing loop, and really start the segmentation process there. Obviously, search engine optimization is huge because people are searching for this kind of thing on Google. So you
Mhm.
want to do everything that you can in that regard. But then also AI, we're seeing some interesting things happening there. People are asking AI a lot of questions that they maybe haven't asked Google before. So I won't get too deep into that. That gets kind of nerdy really quickly.
No,
But
I'd
that's
love
an
to hear more. I
interesting growth
mean,
area.
sorry, I didn't mean to jump across you. I think it's interesting because it's an area of huge debate, I guess, in the wider B2C world. Google dropped, I think, below 90% of search share for the first time ever in December. We know that a lot of people are going to TikTok to find things out, and they ask questions differently than they do on Google. So, I mean, what is it? They find better information, wider results, feel dare I say, feel safer asking an AI engine?
It could be that or maybe they're just getting more complete information,
Okay.
making. It seems like AI and search and that kind of thing. People are they're using that to maybe find, but then they're using things like Instagram or TikTok, or watching some of these influencers
Yeah.
when they're trying to understand how to do something, how to become better at something or improve a skill. So it's an interesting mix of both. So that would be the other area I would say where you can really begin to make a name for yourself, is the use of influencers, affiliate marketing, that kind of thing on social, where we're
Mhm.
banned from paid content, but you can get your name and your product in front of people through those venues.
So I'll come back to AI in a little while because it's impacting all industries. I'd love to hear how, or if you guys are using it. But the again, the journey on building, what are the stories people are coming to you with now? Like, what are those business challenges that your clients and customers are coming to you with, that they're trying to solve? Is it removal of legacy technologies? Is it customer requirements? What are those key things that you're seeing as decision points right now?
It's a great question. It's a little bit all over the place right now because everybody's trying to figure out what the economy is going to do. But it seems like most people are interested in projects right now, on our side from what we're seeing. And
Yeah.
there's a couple of reasons for that. It's you can fix cost related to a project, but a lot of times they're trying to align their entire marketing tech stack to be more efficient, so that when things do change and maybe there's economic or political changes that cause a rise in the market, they're in a great position to capitalize on that for years to come.
Yeah, it's similar, I think, in most industries right now. The budget is not there for a lot of replatforming, and the skill set is not necessarily there. I think we had a generation in the mid 2000s of people who have done replatforms one too many times, and they're not too keen to get into it again. So they're saying, well, why don't we tackle project work?
Yeah, and you know, that's interesting because yeah, the early part of the agency, we did replatforms regularly,
Hmm.
and now it seems to be people will pick a platform and ride it for much longer than they used to, and then focus on the other pieces, the other tech stack. And that's part of the great thing about composable commerce is you get to when you have a tech stack of a bunch of different technologies that aren't necessarily all married together into one monolithic platform,
Yeah.
you're able to pick and choose and replace those individual pieces without having to wipe the whole slate clean every couple of years.
Yeah, it's definitely something we're seeing, and the conversations become a lot easier when you're doing that as well, because maybe budgets don't have to go so high up, or they're already pre-approved, and people can use them to deploy pretty impactful pieces of work then as well, which I think is kind of interesting. In
Yeah.
terms of selection of technologies, Jason, you've said, like you've talked a few times about tech stack. Are you limited in the the volume of technology, and does it limit the work? Are there things you would like to do if the limitations weren't there?
Yeah, we would love to be in more places in our industry, but it's not necessarily limitations of the technology. It's just I'll go ahead and put this out there.
Yeah.
A lot of people get squeamish when they talk about guns, whether it be for the things in politics or the things in the news or that kind of thing. But
Mhm.
let me say this clearly so that everybody hears this. And I have this conversation with every one of our tech partners when we first meet. There
Okay.
is no safer e-commerce than selling guns online, because there is no product out there besides guns that I can come up with, guns and suppressors and any kind of serialized item like that that's regulated, where you have to do an FBI background check to take possession of the product. These guns are not shipping to people's houses. They're not being, you know, mailed to just anywhere. They are shipped to your local gun store, and you have to drive there and do a background check, an FBI background check right then and there on the spot. And if you pass, you
Wow.
can then take possession of the product. That seems to alleviate a lot of concerns with our tech partners when we say it that way.
And is that every single transaction that happens in e-commerce for guns?
No, it's not. It's just the ones that contain a gun or suppressor or something like that
Okay.
that requires um, that FBI background check.
And what way does that process happen then? Is you go into your gun store, the FBI check happens on site, you get a notification that it can be released? Is it something like
That's
that?
correct. Yes, it's called the NICS, NICS
Okay.
system that the FBI uses, and it does an instant background check. If there happens to be some concern or they need to do a little bit more digging, you can get a delay, and they'll tell you to come back when it's when you've been approved or disapproved.
Okay.
But it checks your, you know, your criminal background, your history, that kind of thing. Make sure that you're a safe and sane person to own that product.
Yeah.
And usually it's an instantaneous yes or no right there on the spot.
And in the cases that it's not, is there much dispute from the recipient or the perceived recipient?
You can dispute it. I've never had to or never known anybody that needed to, because that
Yeah.
database is pretty, you know, 20 years ago it was a different story, but
Yeah.
all of these police and crime databases are all seem to be pretty well connected now. So, and then everybody's identity is pretty well managed by the government as well.
This seems like a dumb byproduct of a question from my side, but is returns a challenge in the gun industry?
It can be a lot of times. You know, usually once a firearm has been transferred from the manufacturer to the dealer, and then from the dealer after the background check to the customer, it's considered non-returnable for the most part, unless there's some kind of manufacturing defect or something along those lines. But then for all the parts and accessories, that kind of thing, it would follow a fairly standard percentage of returned orders after that.
So with all of this in mind, like as an agency, have you had to build your own technical your own tech capability, like whether it's on the marketing side or on the development side? It must be pretty unique position to be in, like being on that growth side and the development side.
Yeah, so there are some pieces that we've had to build ourselves, but mostly we have fantastic partners that are willing to engage and build their product around our industry, or make modifications necessary, or increase or enhance capabilities to address the needs. Thankfully, most of this is not very difficult compared to a lot of other things, deep ERP integrations, that kind of thing. So um, we mostly lean on our fantastic network of tech partners that we've built over the last 17 years.
Amazing. And like stepping out of some of the detail a little bit, in the wider market, where do you see this going in the political climate that we're in? Like we've talked a little bit about things have accelerated, decisions have happened faster. Does that put more pressure on you to support differently? Like, do you have to put more emphasis on development now or growth? I've asked a similar question along the way, but have you got to hedge bets on where you think this is going to land?
Ooh, great question. Let me think. What's the best way to answer this? Really, when you build a flexible, dynamic e-commerce and marketing system, you are you're hoping and building for the future. And part of that is just being able to switch on a dime, agility. And most of the platforms that we work with are very agile. We can address changes in the market or the changes in laws relatively quickly. Some are faster than others. A lot of it comes down to how quickly can we alter the tech stack or the e-commerce platform or the marketing related to it. But then also there's the back end side of things for our merchants and manufacturers that we deal with. They have people and processes and workflows of their own that they're going to have to change. And we usually end up waiting on them more than we're waiting on the tech to catch up.
Yeah, with such a long legacy, I'm kind of thinking now, does more of your time get spent becoming almost like a consultant because there's so many process things that have to change because the technology is so far ahead, or do you have to wear a lot of hats yourself then as well?
I wear more hats than I want to wear. I'll say that. But yes, as things have gone on, my role especially, but us as an agency in general, has become more consultative over the years rather than just button pushers and pixel pushers.
So it means you've probably got I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase this now as well, but it feels like you've got a great depth of responsibility to your community, and that's born out of, I guess, your own love of, you know, the industry and the people in it, and I can see how the responsibility lands a lot on your shoulders. But what I mean is, if there's new entrants into the market, they can get things wrong really quickly, and it can be detrimental to everybody and not just themselves. How do you guard against that? Like, how do you get education out to people and bring them up to speed on the things they need to know?
Well, a lot of times our merchants are more risk averse than we are. You know, I have a philosophy that if your marketing team is not pushing the boundaries a little bit and getting their hands slapped a little bit every once in a while by the merchants, that you're probably not pushing hard enough. You're not trying hard enough. So usually we're the ones that are having to be reeled back just a little bit, and that's not a bad thing. You know, it's like having a very conservative tax accountant versus a one that's more aggressive, and you kind of put them together and you meet in the middle and come up with a more comprehensive and a better plan, probably. We try to fill that role as well. We want to build as much of a layered approach to compliance and handling the laws and restrictions as we can, but we also want to try to, you know, push the boundaries a little bit of what tech is capable of and what our clients are capable of. By staying out there with the latest news, the latest changes, helping them make good decisions, and just trying to respond as quickly as possible.
So thinking about pushing the boundaries out right now, where do you see it can go? And we've mentioned AI a little bit. Are you using AI for more development work and back end development? Are you using AI at all, or is it more in the front end to help from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, it's definitely more on the front end. I'm sure there are agencies out there that are using it for a lot of development, coding, that kind of thing. I just don't trust it, especially in a regulated industry. We might attempt it every once in a while just to test things and do a little research and development. But as far as live code, no, we're not using it. It's definitely more on the front end and the marketing side of things.
And do you ever see a world where AI can support safer marketing or better marketing from within the industry? Maybe get you into more mainstream?
I think that's probably possible. I don't know enough about it at this point, but I would think AI agents would be able to handle some of the heavy lifting related to that in probably in less than a year or two.
It's refreshing to hear that you're not claiming to be an expert on AI marketing like all of us on this side generally do.
When I hear somebody say they're an expert, I immediately have suspicions, and I'm skeptical. I think a lot of people confuse being a professional with an expert, and I'm definitely in the professional camp and not an expert camp when it comes to AI.
So, kind of moving on from that a little bit, I want to kind of get back to the start to get closer towards the end of this conversation. It's really about community, because it feels like it's a small community, but a large representation of the population. Like people know each other, and they see each other. Um, is is that how information gets passed? Is that how new technology updates happen? And who do you rely on for updates? Because compliance can change and regulation can change so quickly. It must be, you wake up in the morning checking the news to see, do you need to make any wholesale changes?
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm in a blessed position, having been in this position for as long as I have, to know a lot of people that are in a similar situation, or maybe they're just marketing managers in the industry at a manufacturer or a merchant or that kind of thing. But then also we have great tech partners on the legal side of things that follow the legalities, the changes in compliance, on a zip code by zip code basis, that help us with that as well. So it's part tech, it's part my love for the industry, it's part, what are you hearing on the ground from other professionals? It's kind of bringing it all together, and I'm in a great position where I get to absorb from all of those sources.
Can I ask again a question? Just listening to what you're saying, it's more about, if I've committed to a project and I've delivered it and I'm with you guys and regulation changes, do I have to defer some of my revenue to allow for unplanned changes, or do people, are they able to pick that up as it's required?
I think most people just pick it up as it's required. Most of the platforms are flexible enough to be able to make changes without a heavy dev investment anymore. That was a completely different answer than I would have given 10 years ago, though.
Okay.
When we were heavily dependent on Magento and or other open source or something like that, or even some of these closed systems that may have come with your ERP or something like that. Yeah, you're going to invest heavily on that. But it seems like the world is standardizing on what's acceptable, what's expected for the platforms, and so the days of heavy dev work for most merchants, not all, most merchants, is probably mostly in the rearview mirror. But it's always good to be able to have a little bit set aside for those really custom things that you want to take advantage of, especially if you are in a niche area of the industry where laws are changing rapidly. Suppressors comes to mind right now.
Okay.
I would not be surprised if in a year or two suppressors come completely off of the restricted items, and maybe in a few years beyond that, you would be able to buy one without any background check, because it adds no lethality. It does nothing to the gun other than make it less loud for the shooter and those around you.
Interesting. And kind of taking suppressors, you kind of said people get squeamish when to talk about guns. Do you feel that your industry is marginalized or some way treated differently?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a large portion of the American populace that wants nothing to do with our industry or anything that's considered to be, right side politics, and whether it actually is or not. This is a constitutionally protected industry. I mean, we have the Second Amendment that protects our ability to keep and bear arms. So you would think it would be less political than it is, but that's the way the world works now. Everybody is painted into a corner or painted on one side or the other against each other, and that can be frustrating. So yes, there are still people that shy away from us and don't want anything to do with us. I think that's changing, and I've seen that over the last year or so. You're muted.
Do you have a sense of what's changing or why that's changing?
Well, it's interesting, and without getting too political, I think both sides, the two major parties,
Yeah.
are seeing the need for the average person to be able to protect themselves from any threat that may come, whether it's just regular violence that you may encounter on city streets or in your home, or to government overreach. I think both sides are getting a taste of and have over the last several years of what it might mean to defend yourself, and that kind of crosses all boundaries. Everybody wants to feel safe and protected. I mean, it's why we have a fire extinguisher in our home, in addition to a gun in our home, in addition to many other things, smoke alarms, that kind of thing. Nobody wants anything bad to happen, but you have to have some way of protecting yourself and your family. I think both sides are starting to see that and appreciate that.
No, it's interesting. You're kind of the first person that I've spoken to. Not that I get to speak to a lot of people about the industry, but certainly in the conversations I've had, that has been able to articulate that, which is very positive to hear, I think, and it's something we can all try and bring forward with us as well. And do you see this being? Do you see the political side of it being a detractor to people wanting to get into the industry or planning a career around it, or there's other byproducts of it that are not directly visible to us all?
Yeah,
like talent acquisition for you, for example. That's got to be a challenge.
Yeah, it's definitely hard, harder than it was years ago. I just look at the hunting side. Let's take that for an example right now. 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, many more people were hunters. They would go with their dad or their granddad or something like that. And now it's not a hobby. It's not a pastime like it used to be. There's only certain pockets of the U.S. where it's really popular. I can remember, and I'm not that old. I can remember guys going hunting first thing in the morning and then going to school and then going home. So what they had in their car probably wasn't, the smartest thing back then, but we didn't really have a problem with that back then. And that was definitely the case for my father's generation, where they had a shooting team at some schools. Wow. They would have a shooting range or an archery team or that kind of thing. And it's just not mainstream anymore, like it used to be. It's still very popular in certain segments of the population in certain states, but it's definitely not as mainstream or popular as it used to be. And that definitely causes trouble in talent acquisition, because people just aren't exposed to it as much.
Yeah, I'd imagine on brand side as well, it becomes increasingly difficult to get and retain talent as well, and build a long-term business. So I guess turnover is going to be quite high. When you think about the next 2 or 3 years and people who are not making decisions right now because they have this maybe decision paralysis, how do you talk them through that? Like, what are those things that you look to say, you know what, it's improving, things are getting better, or here's how I view your business?
Right. So I speak about it the same way I speak about it to anyone, no matter what they're doing. We are, the economic factors that we have today are difficult. They're difficult for some people more than others. Mm. But we have to remember that we are the economic powerhouse of the world. Things will get better. Life is, just because things are one way today doesn't mean it's going to be that way in the future. And we all know things could turn on a dime. Mm-hmm. And whether it be political or economic forces driving a resurgence and interest in our industry, and just making sales that much easier in our industry, it's. I have a very hopeful view of the future. I don't subscribe to being a pessimist, especially knowing our past and how things are changing rapidly right now. We could see an uptick in the market because of any number of forces over the next few months that would completely change every conversation that we're having with clients right now. So, I keep going back to just basic economics as well. The people that are really excelling right now and positioning themselves for tremendous success in the future, in the near future, are the ones that have managed their cash flow well. They've stayed out of debt. They have the right team in place, that kind of thing. They have the right tech stack, and they're making the most of the situation that they have right now.
That's a pretty comprehensive and positive answer, and probably something good that we could start closing out on. But you speak about it with such a calmness that makes it easy to kind of get your head around. I think there's a huge amount of passion in everything you say, Jason, from our first discussion right through to now. And I know important how community is to you, based on what you tell me about your family and the few short conversations your eyes light up when you talk about them. So I know that passion comes from within. But look, thanks for sharing so openly and honestly. We could talk a lot longer, and I hope we do. I know we're going to meet up over the next few days, so I'm looking forward to that and having a beer and talking about it some more. So look, thanks so much for taking time out and being flexible around these calls. I know we're on different sides of the earth.
Yeah, no problem, Vinny. It was always good to speak to you, and I hope this is the first of many more conversations that we get to have with the microphones on record.
Sounds good to me. Thanks so much, Jason, and appreciate it. Looking forward to sharing this with people as well.
Thanks, Vinny.
Take it easy.